That's the view of the Premier League, but with us to talk about this a little bit more is Clark Carlisle and Daniel Geey, who's an expert in financial fair play. Kind of the Premier League's one thing, Daniel, isn't it? But this will affect whether or not they play in the Champions League. What happens if Manchester City don't agree to these sanctions?
So what's happened at the moment is Manchester City and UEFA, along with a number of other clubs, it's been reported at least anyway, have entered into what's called settlement negotiations with UEFA. And if those settlement negotiations fail, where UEFA effectively proposes certain sanctions so that City agree to the breach effectively, then that's the end of the matter. But if they fail effectively in agreeing, then there'll be another procedure that will start.
So it's kind of the football equivalent of settling out of court at the minute. If they do go to court, what will happen?
So it'll go through the normal process where UEFA will set out the charge. It'll be for Manchester City then to effectively rebut that charge, put a defence forward, and then the club financial control body, adjudicatory chamber, will then come to a decision.
But could this ultimately mean that they might be banned from the Champions League?
Correct. I think it's likely that a harsher sanction will be imposed on Manchester City if they don't agree to settle.
Clark, as a player, what will they be thinking of what's going on at the minute?
Well, the players will be utterly mortified. They've played the best part of a season here and really put their gut in to qualify for the Champions League. And then through no fault of their own, they might be at risk of not being entered into the competition. Or if they are, there are going to be fewer of them who are able to play in it. They'll feel it's a travesty.
Why, Daniel, have some clubs only been given financial penalties? Because we believe that some of the European clubs have been given a fine, but that's it. There's been nothing said about whether or not they can take, 25 or 21 players to the Champions League.
So I think it'll become clearer early next week on which clubs have just received financial penalties, i.e. the fine, as you mentioned, or some type of sporting sanction, which could be a reduction in squad size. And that will really have a significant effect on their competitiveness in the Champions League for the season ahead.
Is this having the desired effect?
Depends on your view. I think if anyone looks at the latest UEFA benchmarking report, it's just a big financial paper effectively. But what it does say is that club losses have decreased by 600 million euros over the season that just gone, which shows that some people would say FFP is working in making clubs reduce their losses and live within their means.
If Man City were your client, would you say take the settlement, or would you advise them to go to court?
Depends what the settlement is, and unfortunately at the moment it's only what the rumours are. But if the rumours are true, it's probably the harshest sanction possible without it being expulsion, and that's where you play the roulette game.
If you're a fringe player, this stinks, Clark, doesn't it?
It does. It absolutely stinks if you're a fringe player, but also if you're a potential recruit for Manchester City. If they're going to have reduced squad size going into next season's Champions League, if you've got the choice of Manchester City, you're likely to have the choice of Liverpool, who are going to be Champions League newbies and are going to have the full complement of 25 players to go for.
£50 million fine might ruin my weekend, but will it ruin Manchester